Hello, everybody. We're going to be looking at shonen tropes, where they are today, and where could they have come from. This is by myself, Sam, Thomas, Kafui, and Nate. So, shonen trope is a recognizable element within a story or plot that defines or conveys information about a character. You all took the class, so hopefully you guys got a pretty good understanding of this. We're going to be looking at three today: the underdog, the anti-hero, and the shonen. We're going to be using Dragon Ball to kind of push through the development of these tropes. Starting with underdog, we can track underdogs all the way back to Astro Boy. Astro Boy was a robot trying to fit into a human world. So this discrimination essentially kind of puts him on the underdog list, and through that we kind of see our first glimpse of a shonen that is an underdog. And then moving forward, 1984, we see Goku from the series of Dragon Ball, later Dragon Ball Z. Goku, he's got a pretty interesting story. He's just constantly trying to develop more power to beat the next enemy. He always finds himself at the top of one hill finishing an enemy off, and just to see that he's at the bottom of another. This is pretty repetitive throughout the series of Dragon Ball, but it still makes for a relatively good story. It's important to note that tropes, there's tons of tropes within every character, regardless if you know it or not. Benevolent fighter, will to defend his friends no matter what. Adult child, but above all else, he's an underdog. So it seems somewhere along the way of the Dragon Ball series, tons of other creators decided that watching characters overcome large obstacles, 3,000 times in a row, built powerful messages for pretty much anybody to get a kick out of. But the underdog isn't just fighting. Underdog is anywhere between fighting and then finding love, essentially. And it's these stories that kind of make these impressive takes on what an underdog really is and build suspenseful stories for all kinds of different viewers. Now on to where we are kind of today. We see ourselves looking at Tanjiro from the series Demon Slayer. Tanjiro, he's an underdog. He kind of hits every little wicket here for an underdog. He's not just physical power. It's he's struggling with his mental fortitude and the emotional state from the loss of his family at a very young age. But yeah, Tanjiro from the Demon Slayer show, he's a great representation of an underdog in modern anime. It's kind of cool though. We could also see feels like a throwback essentially to Astro Boy, because he's a human trying to fight demons, trying to fit into what's called the Demon Core, Demon Slayer, demon fighting world. Just kind of he's dealing with discrimination the same way Astro Boy was dealing with being a robot in a human world. I know we're thinking underdogs. Naruto, yeah, honorable mention for him. We're really not gonna get into it. Everybody should know Naruto for the most part. Underdog, yeah. Bishonen, pushing on. So as simple as possible. Bishonen, he's a young boy or man who is exceptionally beautiful, often characterized by delicate or androgynous features. It's important to note though that with these characters, they're not completely bound just by being a Bishonen, their beautiful looks. Their personalities usually go a little bit deeper than that, though there are ones that are just strictly pretty boy kind of thing. We can see some of these as early as 1970. This isn't really necessarily the first one, but it's a good one from earlier. Ryo Asuka from Devilman. This is a manga from the 1970s. He's just his beauty compared with a complex, conflicted personality with a good or evil. Is he good, evil kind of struggle that he's dealing with his character? It just kind of builds for a pretty good Bishonen story. Going past this, we see Trunks from Dragon Ball Z. Trunks himself, he is a slender build, striking lavender hair, and graceful movement type of Bishonen. His aesthetic appeal is enhanced by his combination of physical strength and delicate features, making him a standout Bishonen character. He embodies a mix of strength, sensitivity, and heroism. His determined nature and depth of character align with the Bishonen archetype, making him relatable and appealing to a broad audience. Also, he's a time-traveling warrior, so that's kind of cool. After him, again, to our more modern, we see Demon Slayer. Inosuke. Inosuke, he's an interesting Bishonen. He was raised by he was raised by boars. He's got very brash personality. He's very headstrong, not very smart. Despite his rugged exterior, Inosuke, he possesses hidden depths of to reveal like a softer, more vulnerable side. We see him with like a mask on initially, but he unmasks to reveal surprisingly beautiful Bishonen-like appearance. His muscular build combined with attractiveness features creates a unique take on the Bishonen trope, and it's pretty great to see. There's tons of differences with all three of these characters. We can keep going for a long period of time, but I like Inosuke the best. He blends toughness and male traditions with Bishonen beauty, offering subversion on the old tropes, which is great. But at the end of the day, the development through like these Bishonens, it reflects and changed tastes on society norms over time, and it really creates better stories for a lot more people to kind of like get a hold of and relate to, and that's pretty cool. All right, anti-hero now. Anti-hero is a trope that involves characters typically more questionable than a traditional Heart of Gold character. Anti-heroes typically fluctuate the reader's expectations of them, being on the good guy's side or the bad guy's side, sometimes at the same time, but most of the time they flip sides from one to the other. Vegeta, he's interesting. He kind of starts off as the antagonist for Goku, where up to that point, like he was like Goku's like toughest opponent. Eventually we see him kind of changing sides. He's like a good guy now, but he's also like a bad guy, good guy. He's thwarting the bad guy's plans all the time. We eventually find him just being a gruffy, edgy, cool rival character for Goku's dopey, silly personality whenever he marries Bulma and has Trunks. Pushing past this, Vegeta, being cold-hearted and brash, we kind of move on to Cineme from Demon Slayer as well. Sorry, I don't really know how to say his name. He's an interesting one. He's an interesting anti-hero because on the surface he is a good guy. He's not an ally to the main character necessarily, though. He's a Hashira. Hashira being like a very dedicated demon slayer. It's the pillar of like the demon slayer core. So he hates demons regardless if they're on the good guy's side or the bad guy's side. And this kind of confliction of him wanting to kill every demon, especially being on like the good guy's side, creates like this anti-hero like vibe. It's really interesting to see. You guys should really check out the series. It's pretty great. We can go on for quite a while about that character. But at the end we find that like origins of tropes really aren't that simple. We can find famous animes and look for similarities, but the fact of the matter is true inspiration comes from all over, and until you talk to the writers of the manga or anime or anything you watch or read, you'll never really know like where they got the idea for the characters and how the tropes kind of came developed through their stuff. But it's talking about the stuff which creates more depth of like these readings and viewings and stuff that brings the community a lot closer together, and it's great. But yeah, thanks for watching, you guys.